Welcome to Authentic, where real stories meet real hearts. This is your sanctuary, a space for truth, transformation, and tender conversations. Here, we unmask the pressure to perform and lean into who we really are. Whether you're searching, healing, or rising, we see you. You are allowed to look good, feel good, and leave this space feeling bold. So, take a breath, be still, and come home to you. This is Authentic. Note to self, I want to think about the kind of love that I truly want. Love that's patient, kind, honest, respectful, and supportive. Love that lifts me up and celebrates who I am. I've learned that the healthy love starts with valuing myself. Reminder, I deserve to be loved the way I loved myself, with care, respect, and kindness. Love isn't always easy, but it's worth it. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a journey we live every day in the connections we make and the stories we share. Today, an Authentic, we welcome Hylton S. Grace, a clinical social worker with over 25 years of experience, a life coach, a poet, and a storyteller who brings wisdom and empathy to every conversation. Hylton organizes monthly poetry gatherings in the Cayman National Culture Foundation and is a regular at Gimme Stories, combining creativity and insights into human connections. In this episode, he shares his thoughts on love in real life, the journey, the challenges, and the power of authentic connections. This is Hylton Grace on Authentic.
We're an authentic. Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you.
What an intro.
Thank you, Hilton, for joining us today, and thank you so much for being a part of Authentic.
It's a pleasure to be here. So let's be authentic.
Hey, let's be authentic. It's a pleasure to have you. Have you seen what's on my shirt, though?
Oh,
by the way.
Oh, nice. No imitation only.
No.
Alignment. What's value spirit. That's the
That's
stuff we'll definitely be talking about.
That's definitely what we're talking about. So before we dive into the essence of the interview, Hilton, the question ponders: Who is Hilton?
That's a beautiful question. You know, I often ask many other people I work with, who are you and how do you know you are who you say they are?
Yes.
So in terms, I'll just say some basics. So I'm
Okay.
Jamaican, currently call the Cayman Islands home. I'm a family man. I have a family. I work primarily as a counselor, but I'm also a life coach, as you mentioned, a mentor. Overall, a fun-loving guy. I love storytelling and poetry, which I write and I perform.
Mhm.
So, you know, those are some of the things that really makes me me. I think I have a particular way of showing up,
Mhm.
which, like I say, is authentic to me.
It's authentic.
You know, so
It just comes naturally.
yeah. So poetry, storytelling. I have a genuine love for people, and hence why I'm in counseling and life coaching and those kind of areas. I teach sometimes as well. So it all comes full circle.
It comes full circle. So would you say mentorship and coaching and actually being a part of the industry, would you say one of the reasons why you became a coach is because it's a part of your calling?
Absolutely. You know, I started working with from a young age. Why I'm gray and I tell when I say young again.
I couldn't tell.
But I developed an aching to work with people, engage with them, and I think it's something that I think my mother kind of fostered. And so I wouldn't see myself doing anything not working with people. I'll tell you a quick story. In high school, I was particularly good at accounting, and my accounts teacher wanted me to go in that direction. But Hylton Grace wouldn't see himself anywhere about crunching no numbers. I want to be with the people, engage with them, have that kind of attachment with people.
Just a little backstory of how I actually discovered you, because as people know, I'm a life coach myself, and it's something that I'm passionate about. And as I would always say to people, is that we live vicariously through each other, and that's something that I had to learn in my own personal life, where I grew up seeing my grandma, and
Yes.
God rest her soul, she died, but I saw the stages of her life from the height to the decline, and I think it does something to you as a child seeing that. But at least for me, it kind of humbled you in some sense to know that, at some point, you might have to go through that journey. And it's really the story and the legacy you leave behind. That is what really, what life is really all about, and how you treat people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I was recommended to your page on TikTok, which is so interesting, I must say.
Yeah.
Some really wholesome content.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So for my TikTok, I post stuff generally around life itself, a little focus on mental health because that's the area I'm in. But it speaks to just general things where I talk about things like psychological safety, about also just being authentic or showing up as who you are. So it's those general themes, and sometimes I post some foolishness too. Which means sometimes just leaving home. Just
I don't think I went that hard, that far down the rail. I think I'll keep it where where it is. Okay, so my first question to you is, what is your personal definition of real love?
Why, I don't know why we have to preface it and say real love, and I think love is love. Right? So whether that is from romantic love or love of family or even country, it is really about appreciating and understanding, especially let's start with self. Appreciating and understanding self through acceptance, firstly. And then in terms of how we love others, in order for us to love others, it means we care for them. It means we respect them. It means we work to ensure that we demonstrate love. Long ago, I found a definition of love. It says love is an action. It's a verb. So it's not something that we just say. It is something that we show and we demonstrate on a daily basis.
I totally agree with you. So practically what you're saying is, in order to show love in some ways and show up in a loving way in your life and others, you truly have to define that for yourself.
Absolutely. You define it for yourself, but then there are some general things that, however you define it, these are important points to have in it. It means a respect. It means a caring. It means a willingness to work with, and also means acceptance, right? And even if we look at, let's say, a child and a parent, parents tend to love their children regardless. It's kind of like what we call it unconditional love, right? Sometimes you say, we make a joke and say, boy, that child's a face that only a mother or a parent would love. That's the kind of love. No matter what, you're loved. And we want to distinguish loving from necessarily condoning, because you can love someone who is inherently bad or not showing up in their authentic self.
Agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to our second question, which is, how important is it for people to practice self-love before getting into a relationship?
It's absolutely essential. Loving self means that you've gone through a process of discovery, understanding who you are, and of particular what your values are, what are those things that give you meaning, right? And what are those things that actually move you? Because if you enter a relationship with a deficit of not knowing yourself, chances are you are going to end up merging a relationship with someone else, and you can easily get lost into that. I've seen relationships where people are wrapped up in each other, where you don't know one from the other, and because one of the person don't actually know who they are. And that's why oftentimes in breakup and rejection, people take it really so hard and so deep, because oftentimes we're trying to love people without understanding who we are, what we stand for, what are those things that are important to us.
So in that instance where, as you said, with the breakup and people take it really, really bad, would you say it's maybe in the sense of persons attach their identity to the other person? So now it's as if I'm not with you, I can't live without you because you define me. You are who I am.
Yeah, and I like how you use the term attachment, because there's a whole theory in psychology called attachment theory, which looks basically at how we attach to our early caregivers, and depending on what that relationship was, then it kind of helps to determine how we also show up. And so, like you said, people generally seem to attach to people without understanding why. And many times it is sometimes deficits that we have identified in ourselves and we are trying to gain from the other person. There used to be the saying of that we are two halves, but the truth is we are whole persons who engage with another whole person, and together we become dynamic and beautiful. It's not my other half, because if you're half, you're really not really being optimal. You're just being a part.
You're just being a part.
Yeah.
So do you think, in terms of the Hollywood and the blockbuster movies and social media and relationship goals, do you think those things kind of glamorize love and give people a false sense of kind of what love is, and they live in this fallacy?
They say like a movie. Hollywood has this. They do their job.
Okay.
Because it's marketing.
Yeah.
Right? And so things are curated. It's not necessarily real life. When you look at people's Instagram pages, when you look at the stories that Hollywood produces about love, relationship goals are absolutely great, but to a large extent, many of that is indeed curated. People, in today's day where we live on likes and stuff like that, we create these things. Even if you look at something like love and hip hop, you think any of that real life scripted, right?
Onions.
Please, right? So, when Hollywood depiction of love is not necessarily love, because guess what? After all these feelings goes between you and I, there comes the reality. We must be willing to struggle with each other and together, and to also flourish at the end of that, because we develop resiliency after having been through some things, right? Today's idea of love also issue of timing. You meet today and you fall in love tomorrow, and all of a sudden we're in this thing, and then you see it just the real life really comes to bear, and then people split and people have a really hard way of doing it. So don't look to Hollywood as a marker for true love. You want to look at great examples where they exist in your family, where they exist in your community. We must also not believe that longevity in relationship necessarily meant that this is love or healthy. Again, in Jamaica, we hear some old people say, "Oh, we have been together 46 years and never had an argument." Lie. And if they've never had an argument, that was not true love. Some other guys say,
somebody's not saying
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So look in your community. Look for examples of healthy expressions of love, which means we love each other. That means we respect each other. We may not always agree, but when we disagree, how do we fight? Do we fight fair? Right? Am I able to say my piece and you say your piece, and we vex about it for a little bit, but then come back to resolve that? And when I'm in trouble, are you there for me? Or if you're in trouble, we talk about this thing about even loyalty in Hollywood is very skewed.
Yeah, it is.
So if I get in trouble, will you be by my side to help me go through these things where possible, so that we can actually go from that and learn from those experiences. So look around, not Hollywood. There may be one or two examples, but people we see on the screen is not really the real people in real life.
Agreed. Just like how they said, Chanel and Gucci, they sell luxury. So
Yes.
how will we sell it fallacy?
Yes, sell dreams. Not to say that we should have dreams.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Okay, well, I think you've already answered my second question, which was going to be, what is the biggest myth that surrounds the question or the topic of love? But I think if you want to...
Yeah. Well, today people are very cynical and believe that love doesn't exist. And so, to use a colloquial term, many of us just a cut and go through. Which is a very poor way. When I move, I can, and that really messes with our own psychology. So the myth that it doesn't exist, it's truly a myth, because love does exist, but it requires people who are developed and people who are willing to be healthy for themselves so that they can be healthy for others. So we show up together, we struggle together, and we move mountains together.
I agree.
That is how I see it.
I agree. And I think just kind of highlighting myself just a little bit, because, we've all been through our journeys, and we've all been through our own thing. And it definitely goes back to the terms that you would say in terms of, how could you love someone if you don't know how to love yourself? Yeah. And you have to know how to honor yourself and see the values and be able to, I always say, accept your humanity, because you're gonna have to see that person. Oh yeah. You're gonna have to see those flaws. Yes. And also you have to bring that back to yourself and be like, well, I'm not perfect. Yeah. I do the same things. I mess up. So if I can love me and my flaws, I'm surely be able to accept you. Absolutely. Now, even within that, it's also the willingness to challenge people and call them out on their poor behaviors. Yes, and in that calling out, it's not done to shame, but it is to pull up further to say, hold account. This appears inappropriate, or this is something we have had several discussions about, but seem to be repeating. What is that about? What is that about? Right? And to ask that in a very non-threatening, but in a way that requires one to be accountable. Agreed. But how do we practice these things? Because in the Caribbean culture, though, yeah. Let's talk about it. But you know what? We're getting there. With your podcast, I'm quite sure will play one of the roles in that. And I've seen a number of podcasts. I've seen Sing Soul sessions. Yes. Terry Carell's presentation, as well as other persons in the wider Caribbean. I think we are getting the message. We are becoming more educated. I'm not talking about academic education, but more worldly education in terms of what relationships ought to look like. So I think we are still exploring that, and we are growing in those areas, but we seem sometimes to more highlight the toxic. And we like the topic so much that we sing about it. Oh yeah. And we glamorize it. So but from the Caribbean perspective, I think we are developing and looking at relationships differently. So Gen Z and you younger folks kind of start to see things differently. Me as a more mature man, and due to my experiences, I kind of see some of those things slightly different in terms of how we approach relationships, etc. That's good. There's a shifting in the waves. There is certainly. That's good. I mean, we need it. With everything that's going on, the uncertainty, I always say we need more love. Absolutely. Love a little more and hate a little less. Yes. So it leads me to my next question, which is, can love help us heal, or should we heal before we actually love? That's a complex question, because love has the capacity, yes, to heal. Because oftentimes, what are we healing from? We're healing from hurt. And sometimes being in a relationship where love is demonstrated, the forgiveness comes through that, and someone might be reflecting and saying, gosh, if someone could love me, oh my word, I'm actually lovable. And that can bring about some healing, right? But my question to that, though, doesn't that take some level of self-awareness and introspection
in that person to recognize that, hey, I get it. I have my flaws and I had my flaws, but I will not use it in a manipulative way because I see you embracing me. I won't use that against you.
You know, in therapy, we talk about things like trauma. And so we're going to use hurt/trauma. When you are exposed, so let's say you have been traumatized, but then you are exposed to certain things in terms of love, care, attention, etc., then what happens with the brain? So trauma changes the brain, but then also how we are treated can create new neural pathways. So in being loved, in being cared for, our thoughts and literally physically we start to change in terms of how we see things. So absolutely love can definitely heal, but further in terms of if we know that we are, for lack of a better term, I'm going to say broken, it is important for us to examine that and start working on that before we engage in some fully fledged relationship, because there's a lot of trauma dumping that occurs with people who are, you're too, the wounds are too raw for you to be engaging in a relationship. So the person is gonna get everything plus, right?
Which is not their responsibility.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's someone else's.
Yeah. So hopefully I answered the question.
Yeah, you did. You did. So you're saying it's important, and back to the question I just asked. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Yes.
Because in the sense, as you say, it's a person's personal responsibility to find healing, to understand, to recognize what is going on. And I think that's the first step to be able to open yourself again.
Yes.
To be allow yourself to be loved and love another person. But in the sense of, as I would say, if love can heal.
Yes.
And as you said, partly.
Yes.
But it takes self-awareness.
It does. And within that self-awareness is the willingness to be vulnerable.
To be vulnerable.
And many of us are hurt, but we don't want to go there. And to be vulnerable, we feel it's going to, why would I open myself up to this person? But you're in a relationship with the person, right? So again, that willingness to be vulnerable, and it has to come from a desire for you want to be your best self. I don't know, people kind of think it of as a cliche, but the truth is, if you are not at your optimal best, what are you then, right? And where are you? It means that you're showing up as a half person. You're not really showing up the full potential. And oftentimes when we refuse to heal, what we do is we also deny the world of our own greatness.
Yeah, because it stagnates growth.
Absolutely. Yes.
You can't grow if you're traumatized and you're not healed.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you. I do agree with you.
Yeah. And also in families, for example, we can also help people to bring on that self-awareness. Again, in sociology, we have a concept called a looking glass self, which helps people to understand how others see them. And so we can encourage people to be their better selves. But it has to be done in a kind way, non-blaming way, right? To say, hey, this is what I noticed. It's kind of like if you think of what they call constructive criticism, this is how it should really sound. Hey, you did this great. However, you could improve in that area. Very different versus, like how you do that.
Right? I mean, growing up in the Cayman culture, like, we're going to shame you, we're going to blame you. But that also goes to the theory of positive psychology.
Yes.
Where we highlight and focus on all the positive attributes and all the positive things. Which I do believe, if anyone knows me, I am probably one of the biggest optimists you'll ever know. I had an interview, my previous interview with a psychologist, Lisa Johnson in Jamaica, and we spoke about the invisible weights that we carry. And she spoke about breaking up with shame, and I told her I was gonna get that printed on a t-shirt because I think we need to have that.
It's that thing where, on a bonus, and you're in something with somebody, probably a confrontation, and say, "Who you? You know, who you think you be?" Right? And those are the seeds of shame, because at the heart of shame, really and truly, is feelings of unworthiness. And what stimulates that a lot of the time is the fact that we feel hurt and we feel unworthy. You know, that, well, certain things have happened to us. Do I, should I even gather a voice? Should I have a voice? Right? You know, I'm unworthy of saying these kind of things. So I like that. Break up with shame. Break up with it.
Break up with shame. You heard that here first. So my leads me to my, what are some of the warning signs we're loving from a place of trauma or lack?
All right. So we have this fantasy that if we love each other, we have to be with each other. Right? There's that kind of dependence. So whenever you see someone being totally dependent on someone, kind of almost to the point of obsession, no. That is straight from trauma, right? When you say, "I can't do without you," yeah, that's coming from trauma, because when you're looking at love, is the thing is, I can, me loving you just means that we can be better together. It does not necessarily mean that we necessarily have to be together.
Correct.
Right? Another thing we'll look at and say is where when people are not truthful about themselves, but they're using manipulation tactics, they're using mind games to kind of hold, and and if you go further in the card, then like a science journey to you.
No,
are
we talking theoretical science?
Science, right? And these are some real things.
I agree. I understand.
Yes. So those are just some of the general that overly dependence, that manipulation, mind games, etc. And like I said, that total dependence. Also, where if you are showing up mostly as negative, it is saying something, right? You have some people who life never good for them yet.
Listen.
They're buying them like, okay.
Listen, as I always say, bring my stage with me.
Yes.
To cleanse the energy, because it's contagious.
Absolutely.
It's contagious. I do agree with you. But as I said before, I always encourage people, to, be optimistic. Look on the finer things in life. And I think the possibility of you just waking up out of the 8 billion people every day, I mean, that's
a blessing within itself.
That is something.
Yeah, it's a blessing within itself. So I usually say manage your expectations as well, right? So optimism, but manage the expectations, because sometimes we have those expectations that are not rooted in reality. And so when we face something negative, it's totally devastating. Whilst we hope for the best, but we prepare for the worst.
Prepare for the worst. Yeah, I agree. Radical acceptance as
mindfulness.
You have to have that, like, listen, okay, like I'm in my okay era. I tell people I'm in my okay era. Like, okay, you remember that little thing on the radio with Ezekiel, Irie.
Irie, yes.
Oh my God,
Ezekiel, someone done. Irie.
Only time he responded is when they turn off the radio.
Yeah.
I want to be like Ezekiel. I'm trying to reach that meditative state. I'm trying to reach that Buddha, that creme de la creme.
That's serious stuff.
If you really think about it, he was just in it. He was in it.
Living, and as you talk about being in that moment, it's kind of like, let's segue slightly into something. Again, for those of you who still go out and party a little bit, right? People have them phone filming the thing. You're not in the thing. You're not living in the moment.
No, you're not.
You're living through them lens versus being truly immersed, right? And saying, being in that moment, feel it, experience it, be it, versus, oh, gotta check this and for Instagram. Really,
but
that's
but you do miss the moment. I agree with
absolutely.
Yeah. I agree with you. I actually went to a concert, and just like you went to that segue. I mean, we're already here. Why not?
Yeah.
I went to this Tasha Cobbs concert, and I was there, and it's gospel music.
Yeah.
And you was thinking people Everybody's on their phone.
Yeah.
And I'm just there like, it's the first time seeing Tasha Cobbs. I'm taking in the moment.
Yes, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I agree with you, and you miss out on that.
Very
And I think people do that a lot in life too, because they're so stuck on the external, what is going on outside of them, instead of looking in and honoring yourself. And that's one of the reasons for the show. The show is about honoring yourself, loving yourself, embracing yourself, knowing that we're not perfect. It's okay to mess up. It's okay. You're going to have down days, up days. But guess what? I'm human. And I feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And that's what the show is about. Authentic love is understanding a true essence, the core of who you are and what it means to be me, you, anybody. It's about embracing, as I said, the pluses and minuses. I always use this reference. Embracing the pluses and minuses and knowing that none of us are perfect, but we honor our story. And despite the hurt, we choose to transcend and still choose love, peace, and kindness.
Great.
Well, for another episode, I want to say thank you guys so much for joining us again. And I want to shout out to CMR TV for sponsoring and bringing us online, giving us the opportunity to bring our show out there to our viewers, where it's all about love, embracing, healing, truly understanding and recognizing before we close off, Hylton. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to leave with our viewers?
Continue supporting the show. Authenticity is something that we ought to examine at a very much deep level. Again, we just want to thank you very much for reaching out. It's been an absolute pleasure here sharing my thoughts with you.
Thank you for joining. So I want to say I encourage you to subscribe to the show, like the show, follow me on Instagram at coach_Lorenzo_RF, and remember to be kind. If you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anyone else? And remember, true authenticity can never be replicated. Until next time.